He offered $1 million for a translation, but this cleaner's amazing truth left him speechless. The office was silent, save for the soft swish of Alex Martinez's mop against the polished marble floor. He had seen the silhouettes of the corporate elite glide by through glass walls, but today, while sifting through a pile of neglected papers, he stumbled upon something that made his heart race. An old manuscript lay buried under discarded folders, pages yellowed and filled with dense scientific theories. His hands trembled as he lifted it, the weight of dreams and destinies pressing against his chest. Was this a sign? The very thought of $1 million offer made his mind spiral, fear and ambition colliding. Just a janitor, he reminded himself. An immigrant. The fluorescent lights hummed above him, amplifying his insecurities. Could someone like him truly change his life? Fresh in his mind was the memory of his late grandfather, who had sacrificed everything for education, for knowledge. Alex swallowed hard, thoughts racing. He wanted to know, needed to honor that legacy. Every corner he cleaned reflected his dignity, but was he ready to step into a world far removed from his own? By the time he began to translate, the exhilaration morphed into a gnawing uncertainty. With every complex theory he deciphered, he felt a pang of doubt. The world of intellect had always felt like a glass fortress where he wasn't meant to tread. His colleagues, most of whom wore their education like armor, would regard his newfound venture with skepticism, if not disdain. The voices of doubt crept in, whispering he was not worthy, just a cleaner. He hesitated with each word, fearing that the instinct to belong was a dishonor to his father's struggles. But this manuscript wasn't it a chance to be more than dust and mop? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Days passed as he immersed himself deeper into the manuscript, anxiety carving lines onto his face. The weight of responsibility felt monumental. He needed the clarity to relay the author's message, which unveiled systemic inequities long ignored. Was this the moment he could confront hard truths head-on? The thought sent a shiver down his spine. His fingers danced over the paper, their weight heavy with the echoes of his heritage. He felt himself grappling with knowledge that connected him to his grandfather's history, all too painfully proof that sometimes knowledge is birthed from marginalization. The closer the date of the presentation loomed, the heavier the air grew. Each morning brought renewed dread, tightening around his throat as he imagined standing before James Caldwell, the tech mogul with sharp ambition. Would Caldwell recognize the significance, or would he dismiss the messenger? All his fears coalesced into one chilling thought. If he spoke truthfully, would Caldwell even hear him? Could he confront generations of silence with a single breath? Doubt and determination battled fiercely within him, creating a storm that writhed in his stomach. And just as he settled into a semblance of acceptance, a confrontation erupted. Colleagues' dismissive glances pierced through his resolve. The stakes elevated in that moment of tension. As he stood at a precipice of change, a haunting realization loomed. The author, once a faceless relic of elitism, revealed a connection that irrevocably altered his own narrative, a distant relative beset by the same injustices. The truth shimmered, but would it be enough to prompt understanding or merely amplify the chasm of division? As the clock ticked down, Alex's heart raced toward a revelation that threatened to shatter all he thought he knew. Could this be the key to forging a path forward, or would it be the very thing that tethered him to invisibility? The days dwindled down to a single evening before the presentation, the air thickening with a sense of impending confrontation. Alex sat alone in his dimly lit apartment, surrounded by the harsh glow of a solitary lamp, pages of the manuscript scattered on the floor like fallen leaves. As he stared at the words he had painstakingly translated, A cacophony of doubts echoed in his mind. Was he truly capable of unveiling the complexities of this work? Could a mere janitor, defined by his role and background, speak with authority in the world of academia and business? The manuscript revealed truths about societal inequities that he had observed firsthand, but never articulated. It brought forth voices long silenced, narratives buried under the weight of privilege. He found himself inextricably linked to those struggles. Each theory he decoded reminded him of his grandfather's tireless journey and sacrifice. Yet, the closer he got to sharing this wisdom, the more the voices of skepticism seemed to loom larger, casting shadows of intimidation over his resolve. His heart pounded as he considered the implications of tomorrow's gathering. Would he be able to capture Caldwell's attention? Could he pierce through the indifference of boardroom members who had spent their lives in a cocoon of privilege? They would not merely be hearing a translation. He would be presenting a piece of his own identity, a reflection of resilient struggle. But the question remained, would they see it? In a moment of desperation, Alex gathered the discarded pages and began to practice out loud, sprawling across his cramped living room floor. His voice cracked under pressure, the inadequacies of his upbringing threatening to drown him in vulnerability. Reinforcing his words with gestures, he struck a balance between passion and trepidation. He had to approach the presentation not just as a translator, but as a messenger, the steward of truths waiting to be heard. Every time he stumbled over a phrase, a chill of doubt gripped him, whispering that he was a fraud dressed in borrowed wisdom. Yet, with every repetition, a flicker of determination ignited. This manuscript was not solely about intellect. It was an emotional revelation, a chance to uplift the unheard and make palpable realities of marginalization. The foundation of his anxiety began to crack as he channeled the urgency of those voices. There, amidst fear, lay the stirring of transformation, a burgeoning belief that tomorrow could be different. As he fell into a restless sleep that night, dreams woven with fear and hope intertwined, the truth began to settle in. Despite the odds stacked against him, he felt the stirrings of something greater, a calling to advocate for others like him. This moment was more than about his career. It was the lens through which his family's legacy could finally resonate. The morning light draped across his room, urging him awake with unyielding pressure. Determined, he gathered his notes and rehearsed the central thesis of the manuscript once more, the clarity of purpose sharpening with added intensity. If he faltered, if he succumbed to the dread of inadequacy, he would not just betray himself but the generations before him who had dared to dream. As he stepped onto the bustling subway, surrounded by suits and distractions, Alex felt an unshakable connection to the words he would soon share. This was his moment, an opportunity to challenge perceptions and redefine his narrative. The train lurched as he clasped the metal rail, and in that moment, the doubt that once resided within him solidified into a resolute shift. He would walk into that presentation not just as a janitor, but as a beacon of truth, ready to summon the whispers of history into the spotlight. And as the doors opened onto the sleek lobby of the corporate office, he felt a jolt of adrenaline surging through his veins. The butterflies in his stomach transformed into a fierce resolve. He wasn't merely facing James Caldwell. He was confronting every barricade that had ever restrained him. The time had come to face what lay ahead, not just for himself, but for the legacy he carried within. With a deep breath, he stepped forward, ready to unmask the realities bound up in paper and ink. Would they listen? Would they understand? The questions lingered, heavy with anticipation, as he approached the doors of the boardroom, the threshold to transformation, challenge, and perhaps a new beginning. The boardroom doors loomed before Alex like double sentinels guarding the doorway to his future. With a steadying breath, he pushed through, feeling the weight of 1,000 eyes all trained on him. The stark contrast of the polished table and the pristine suits created a bizarre sense of unreality. This was no longer his little apartment filled with scattered thoughts. This was a space of ambition and intellect, yet it also sparked something deep within him, a flicker of defiance. Seated at the head of the table was James Caldwell, whose reputation for acumen in elite circles preceded him. Caldwell's gaze flicked to the notes Alex clutched tightly in his hands, a mere janitor encroaching upon the world he had only glimpsed from a distance. As his heart quickened and the initial wave of panic threatened to disrupt his composure, he recalled the voices he had wrestled with for weeks, the narratives yearning to rise from obscurity. "Thank you for allowing me to present today," Alex began, his voice trembling slightly. Eyes shifted, and he could feel the skepticism hanging thick in the room. Each syllable felt perilous. "What I have translated is more than just words. It's a reflection of struggles faced by those who have been silenced." A quick glance at Caldwell showed the man's brow furrowing in disinterest, but Alex pressed on, summoning the strength born from tireless rehearsals and the legacies of his ancestors. He spoke not just from his notes, but from his core, channeling the urgency and fervor nested within him. With each phrase, his confidence waxed in defiance to doubt. The manuscript he had translated was a canvas painted with the stories of many echoes of laborers, the downtrodden, the overlooked. These were not just theories. They were lives lived under the veil of systemic ignorance. Motivated by that urgency, he began to share not only the translated concepts but also the implications they bore. This work unveils the barriers of inequity, highlighting how deeply entrenched privilege accumulates power while disempowering voices like mine. The room shifted as he articulated ideas that were both foreign and familiar to the board members, aware of the tremor in his words, but also of the passion driving his delivery. Yet, with every bolstered sentence, doubt intertwined with resolve. Had he truly captured the essence of those who dare to dream? Were they just going to dismiss this as the impractical musings of a man from a life marginalized? The thought was chilling. He could almost hear the collective disbelief simmering, a pervasive, dismissive hum of entitlement. In a moment of vulnerability, Alex stared directly at Caldwell, who peered back, an inscrutable expression on his face. "We cannot afford to remain indifferent to these truths," he declared, a crack in his previously measured facade revealing potential sensitivity. To do so is to ignore not just personal stories, but to dismiss the very fabric of our society. The room fell silent, tension tightening the air, pinching certainty through every person present. For a fleeting moment, he believed they might be swept up in the tide of his message, that perhaps his passion would earn their respect. But as the seconds dragged on, he sensed a deeper challenge surfacing. Beneath Caldwell's composed exterior lay an unyielding skepticism. What had worked in his cramped living room felt tenuous here, surrounded by the bastion of wealth and knowledge. Would Caldwell challenge him? Would he reduce Alex once more into a role defined by circumstance instead of capability? With an intake of breath, he prepared for the possible whirlwind of impending confrontation. Would they embrace his truth, or would he be swallowed whole by the very barriers he sought to dismantle? The room's atmosphere crackled, thick with question marks hanging in the balance, as he felt the inexorable shift nearing reality. But what lay beyond this moment? What revelations awaited as he ventured further into the deep, uncharted waters of self-advocacy? The silence that enveloped the room became a cacophony in Alex's mind, a suffocating blanket of uncertainty. He could feel the sweat trickling down the back of his neck, and a deep-rooted instinct to retreat began to bubble up within him. Yet, at that moment, he was acutely aware of the significance of where he stood. This was not just about him anymore. With every heartbeat, the weight of the moment crystallized his resolve. He could feel the breaths of the board members slow as they processed what they had just heard. Caldwell's expression became something Alex had not quite expected: genuine contemplation, as if he was weighing Alex's words with the gravity they deserved. "Mr. Caldwell," Alex began, breaking the suffocating tension that threatened to close in, "I know you're not accustomed to hearing from people like me. But these are not just stories, they are realities full of lessons and insights that could redefine your understanding of what equity means in business. It's messy, it's uncomfortable, but it's essential. He caught a glimpse of Grace, a senior analyst known for her piercing judgment. Her brow was furrowed, not with skepticism, but with thought. Was that a flicker of intrigue? He willed himself to continue, focused on opening their minds instead of shutting himself down. There's a common misconception that those at the bottom lack ambition, Alex stated, this time with renewed vigor. But it's the barriers, the systemic inequities that crush aspirations before they can even take root. Understanding this doesn't diminish our standing. It elevates the entire narrative around success and responsibility. He could sense the shift in the atmosphere. As he elaborated on the implications of his translation, detailing the passion and strife within his community, he caught Caldwell leaning in slightly, a near-invisible thread of curiosity pulling him closer. For the first time, Alex felt a surge of hope. Imagine I'm not just talking about altruism, but about mutual benefit. Businesses blinded by privilege risk missing out on immense talent and diverse perspectives that could spark innovation. There's a market for empathy, and it can be profitable, but it requires profound internal change. The question was poised precariously between them. Did Caldwell see it too? The landscape had shifted, and for the first time, Alex felt a flicker of agency emerge within him, as if he were moving from the shadows that had long defined his existence. Yet, just as he began to feel a swell of triumph, a sharp voice broke the spell. Interesting theories, Alex. But can you truly comprehend the complexities of running a business? What do you know about profit margins and shareholder expectations? It was Roberts, an investment partner whose skepticism was legendary. Each word felt like a punch to Alex's resolve, knocking him slightly off kilter. Did Roberts even hear him? It was a direct challenge, but perhaps it was also an opportunity. I work in the trenches, Alex responded, grounding himself in his experiences. I've seen firsthand how decisions are made without understanding how they affect real lives. That's why I wrote this. I know the complexities. They exist right under our noses. Alex's heart raced as he realized he needed to turn this into a call to action. Instead of dismissing, I invite you to think differently. Use your privilege to rewrite those narratives. Make tangible efforts to create pathways for change while also redefining what success looks like in this room. As he finished speaking, the air crackled with a blend of skepticism and curiosity. The board members glanced at one another, weighing whether to continue the discussion or retreat back to their echo chamber. In the echo of silence that followed, Alex knew he had moved the conversation, but what lay in wait? Would they see him as a risk or a chance? His hands trembled slightly as he clenched the stack of notes tighter, feeling the urgency of the moment enveloping him. Would this challenge galvanize them into action, or was it all in vain? What came next hinged on their reactions, a pivot away from mere curiosity to a willingness to engage with his truth. The specter of doubt loomed large, and Alex steadied himself, waiting for the storm of responses that were inevitable in this high-stakes academic battlefield. As the first murmurs rose, he sensed that the mission of his journey was far from over. The true test was about to unfold. The tension thickened, clinging to the air like humidity before a storm. The board members' eyes danced from one to another, whispering muted reactions behind furtive glances. Alex's heart jolted. The stakes had never felt so high. Could he stand firm against the impending wave of scrutiny brought forth by Robert's challenge? His thoughts raced, analyzing the implications of his words and the risk he had taken in this high-stakes arena. He had come here with a mission to shift perspectives, to create understanding, but that mission now required more than mere words. In that moment, he sensed more than just interest. He sensed the walls shifting, cracks forming in their preconceived notions. Yet, just as the first flickers of engagement began to glow, Caldwell's hand rose once more, silencing the murmur. All eyes focused on him, full of expectation. "Alex, we see merit in what you're saying," he began, "but all of this brings us back to the fundamental question we need to answer. What does this mean for our bottom line?" The gravity of his inquiry lingered in the air like a challenge, and Alex's mind raced to construct the link between corporate success and societal consciousness. The moment had arrived for him to face the crux of the debate and to reveal whether he could weave a narrative that married profit with purpose. Would he rise to the occasion, or would he falter under pressure, losing the opportunity to shape the narrative that could transform both his life and theirs? The room's atmosphere shifted, pulsating with expectation as Caldwell's words hung in the air like a gauntlet thrown. Alex felt the weight of financial fundamentals pressing against the conviction he had just begun to build. He could sense a summit rising before him, a peak where passion met pragmatism, where ideals needed to be grounded in calculations. "Caldwell, I appreciate your directness," Alex started, feeling the urgency to translate his vision into tangible metrics. "Allow me to propose a model that not only centers on empathy, but also underlines how this leads to increased customer loyalty and brand distinctiveness." He took a deep breath, leveraging the adrenaline coursing through him. The companies that have embraced this shift have varied their portfolios successfully. He continued, each point building a bridge from idealism to financial realism. Take Company X, for example. By investing in diverse leadership, they increased market share by 20% over 5 years. That's not just goodwill. That's raw economic performance. We could emulate this trajectory. As he spoke, Alex's mind darted to every statistic he had ever researched. He conjured images of charts and success stories. But more importantly, he began to reflect on his own path, the struggles, the victories, and most importantly, the lessons born from adversity. He wasn't just an advocate for change. His skin in the game lent a credibility that was increasingly vital at this juncture. Moreover, he pressed on, we aren't just playing catch-up. We're in a position to pivot ahead of competitors. This is an investment in a future where our brand carries not just a financial value, but an ethical one, transforming bottom line into top line in a tangible way. Caldwell remained impassive, yet Alex noticed a slight tightening of his jaw, a silent acknowledgement that the argument was layered, provocative, yet grounded in reality. The board members shifted, engaged, but Roberts leaned back, arms crossed, a fortress of skepticism. But Roberts interjected, skepticism dripping from his tone. What if this fails? What if our shareholders push back, calling for traditional returns that don't leave room for such radical shifts? The challenge ignited Alex's resolve. He understood that uncertainty was the enemy of progress, and knowing that risk was always present in business brought him a clearer focus. He had a choice: to retreat into safety or forge ahead with a plan that blended ambition and pragmatic foresight. Failure is indeed a possibility, but what is far more perilous is inaction, Alex responded, pacing the room as if he were charting an unseen course. Let us conduct a pilot program, a small-scale initiative introducing these values into our marketing strategies. If the results don't reflect the growth and engagement we anticipate, we can pivot. As he proposed this, a knot of tension coiled within him. He needed to ensure that this plan resonated both intellectually and emotionally. The stakes were personal now. This was a reflection of his journey, of his identity meeting the corporate world with tenacity. One of our stakeholders said it best. He recalled, real change happens when passion and purpose unite with progress. A moment of silence ensued, interrupted only by the sharp click of Caldwell's watch, each tick amplifying the pulse of Alex's growing confidence. He could feel the tide shifting again, an amalgamation of curiosity and cautious hope igniting determination in him. Let us honestly wrestle with this, Caldwell urged the other board members. Is it worth the assessment? The notion of engagement over mere dollars burned? Are we willing to explore this possibility? In that moment, Alex saw a glimmer of opportunity, a potential opening not just for the company, but for his own ascendance as a thought leader in a space that needed to understand the untapped powers of voices like his. But just as excitement began to bubble within him, Roberts spoke again, his demeanor turning cold as if winter had returned within the warmth of the room. We can discuss. Concepts all day, but let us not lose sight of our current reality. Numbers don't lie. For every compelling story, there should be data numbers that provide stability. The board's eyes shifted back to Alex, awaiting his rebuttal. He realized the pressure wasn't just on the company's shoulders anymore. It was now firmly on him. He felt the internal pressure mount, a stark reminder that proving his point would also mean pressing against entrenched beliefs and expectations. The time had come to face the numbers and show them he was equipped for this battle, a battle that could either secure his vision or shut it down completely. With his heart racing, Alex steeled himself to confront Robert's challenge, knowing that navigating this argument would be his defining moment. Would he possess the acumen to convert his vision into a compelling financial narrative that swayed them? The room seemed to close in as he weighed his next words, knowing that the outcome could change everything for him and for the company. As the silence lingered, Alex felt the burden of expectation pressing down like a heavy winter coat. He drew in a sharp breath, scrunching the notes in his palm as a nervous tick. He had to rise above the quagmire of doubt that Roberts represented, but logic churned in his mind, warping into the concise points he needed to deliver. He had faced rejection before, yet this moment was different. He was not merely defending an idea. He was defending his evolution, and every moment counted. Roberts, you're absolutely right that our existing shareholders are a crucial consideration. Alex's voice gained steadiness as he settled into his argument. But we cannot ignore how quickly consumer landscapes shift. Investors of today are more attuned to a company's values, and we can leverage discerning market intelligence to win over both sides. His conviction ignited a spark in the room. Caldwell's brow furrowed further, indicating the seriousness of Alex's speech, but it was Robert's dismissive smirk that fueled Alex's fervor. Think about it this way. The companies that have withstood economic disruptions are those that have intertwined innovation with responsibility. Yes, numbers do not lie, but history tells us that numbers alone do not lead. It's the stories behind those numbers the data harnessed to reflect changing environments and consumer expectations that bring depth to our financial narratives. He could sense his words resonated, transforming tension into momentum. Each detail, every statistic, reinforced his point. Passion melded with foresight could create growth that wasn't merely immediate, but sustainable. The pilot program is a calculated risk, a way to put these convictions to the test, allowing us to collect data without fully diving into uncharted waters. He continued, feeling a rhythm develop in his presentation. We will protect our investments while also expanding our brand identity, empowering it to adapt and thrive. Feeling a rush of tenacity, Alex chose to unveil a personal story, now that the moment required a human touch to solidify the argument. When I was younger, I faced challenges that taught me the value of resilience and adaptability. Times changed, and so did I. The world of business operates under the same rules. We must evolve to survive. The board shifted slightly. He could see Caldwell's expression shift into thoughtful consideration and noticed the slightest uncrossing of Robert's arms. A crack in his armor, perhaps. Imagine standing at a precipice of opportunity, not only enhancing our economic footprint, but also crafting our legacy in an ethical marketplace. He paused dramatically, locking eyes with each board member. Ultimately, our competitive advantage will not be solely built on profit margins. It will rest on becoming a brand synonymous with value and integrity. Are we willing to pioneer that path together? The air was charged, the room eerily quiet as they weighed his audacity. Then, a softer voice broke through the charged atmosphere. Caldwell, I appreciate your candid approach, Alex. Let us discuss the parameters of this pilot program more thoroughly. You've definitely provoked my curiosity. On the edge of euphoria, Alex held his breath, fighting back the rush of triumph that threatened to overwhelm him. The fight for acceptance wasn't done, but he could taste a significant victory at the horizon. He had transformed skepticism into intrigue, which stirred new hope in his ambitions. Yet, as he basked in the fleeting glow of potential acceptance, Roberts pinned him with an unwavering gaze. But let us be clear, this conversation is merely the beginning. A pilot is just a taste. The real challenge will be proving whether this translates to our bottom line when the stakes are truly high. The comment landed like a splash of cold water. Alex knew Roberts had a point. The path to acceptance will be riddled with obstacles and retrials. Understood, he replied, squaring his shoulders once more. But it's not the fear of failure that will define us, but our response to it. I am prepared to navigate through the hurdles. However, deep inside, unease simmered. Behind the sense of accomplishment lurked subconscious doubts about his readiness. Could he withstand the inevitable backlash? He glanced at Caldwell, who nodded thoughtfully, signaling a burgeoning alliance. Yet Robert's eyes lingered on him, evaluating their confrontation yet to unfold. The board meeting was far from over, and new challenges loomed large just beyond the horizon. Would the pilot program serve to solidify a bond with ethics at the forefront, or would it devolve into a disaster that jeopardized more than just his proposal? Alex resolved to dig deeper. In this race against time, he had to embrace both the excitement and the pressure that lay ahead. As the board discussed logistics for the pilot program, he began to formulate a new strategy, one that could articulate not just hope, but the hard data necessary to convince even the most adamant skeptic. As he breathed in, preparing to engage further, a chilling thought crossed his mind. What if his vision was fundamentally flawed? What if the metrics he sought seemed less promising under a microscope? The next chapter in his journey was about to unfold, and he knew that this battle for beliefs would shape the very foundation of his career. Would he rise to the occasion or falter under scrutiny? The decision lay ahead, with ramifications stretching far beyond the present moment. As the meeting progressed, Alex felt the energy shift. The initial intensity gave way to a more measured discourse, where Caldwell began probing into specifics. Yet beneath the surface, the invisible pressure mounted. Would his pilot program soon be painted as an optimistic leap or a reckless gamble? Alex forced himself to remain focused, mentally revisiting the data he had spent sleepless nights gathering. He could hear Caldwell's voice, solid and analytical, dissecting the parameters of the pilot program with the painstaking detail of a surgeon. But rather than extract joy from the conversation, a creeping anxiety gnawed at him. Every positive note from Caldwell felt momentary. Each suggestion of the program's viability was tinged with Robert's skepticism echoing in his mind. This is a good step forward, Caldwell acknowledged, rousing Alex from his reverie. But we need projections, solid forecasts. How soon can you get us figures that demonstrate financial viability while solidifying brand trust? By next week, Alex replied, hiding the tremor in his voice. How can we be sure these projections won't fall flat? Roberts interjected, the smirk that so irked Alex reappearing. There was the thorn in his aspirations, pushing him back into the confines of doubt. Remember, anecdotal evidence will do little to convince our board or shareholders. We need numbers, not just dreams. His words acted as a catalyst, provoking both dread and determination within Alex. This scrutiny forced him into an urgent reflection about his own capabilities. Was he merely fabricating a narrative to fit a vision, or could he stand firm upon a solid foundation of facts? Meeting Robert's unwavering gaze, Alex took a deep breath, strategizing internally. Would he counter with raw data now, or take the time to build the broader story? In that moment of decision, he understood his next step would pivot not just the presentation, but potentially his career path. He couldn't diminish the importance of hard metrics while abandoning the narrative that had provoked such intrigue. It's true that numbers are vital, Alex replied, adrenaline sparking through his veins. However, I truly believe that numbers without context lack meaning. Forecasts based solely on past data can sometimes mislead us, failing to adapt to emerging trends. Having both a narrative and concrete figures creates a powerful toolkit to move forward. A flicker of recognition passed over Caldwell's face, as if he saw the paintbrush with which Alex was beginning to outline a strategy that could synthesize both approaches. We need both, Alex, Caldwell reminded him. But I appreciate you recognizing how consumer sentiment drives those numbers. How do you propose we gather insights for quality assurance? That question unlocked Alex's creativity, prompting him to brainstorm real solutions on the spot. What if they implemented customer feedback loops, engaging potential users in real-time scenarios to gauge their responses? What if it didn't just serve marketing objectives, but also helped refine the product to meet genuine consumer needs? With every idea coming to him, Alex's heart raced. This was his chance to reinforce his worth, to become the visionary he dreamt of being. I suggest we conduct focus groups alongside the pilot, he asserted, animated by fresh resolve. We can incorporate customer feedback from different demographics, creating a robust dataset that will inform both our projections and the ethical narrative we want to build. We'll actively involve the community that we aim to serve, aligning our vision with their voice for authentic engagement. He saw Caldwell jotting down notes, the wheels quickly turning in the man's mind. Yet the chill in the air reiterated that Roberts was not satisfied. Engagement is crucial, Roberts conceded, though his tone remained skeptical. But don't let your altruism blind you, Alex. The truth is how quickly those numbers can change under pressure. Be prepared for the heat to rise once the pilot launches. As his comment hung heavily in the air, Alex fought to suppress the unease creeping back in. The stakes were indeed high, and clarity danced just out of reach. The meeting continued, yet Alex's pulse quickened as the weight of his ambitions settled deeper within him. This was not just about presenting a program. It was a reflection of everything he had worked for, everything he had become. But the more he projected himself into the future, the more urgent the question loomed. How prepared was he truly to navigate the inevitable storms of failure? In the depth of his thoughts, a face suddenly appeared in his mind, an old mentor who had warned him once. Success can be your worst enemy if you're not ready for it. With that realization, Alex understood that the true challenge was deeper than mere numbers or narratives. It was about finding grounding in who he was intended to be, a leader who would merge passion with responsibility. As the meeting wrapped up with Caldwell's supportive summary and Roberts' persistent skepticism, Alex remained tethered to his thoughts, questioning the depths of his resolve. How could he transform vague ambitions into concrete victories? The answers were waiting, but would he be able to uncover them in time? The next steps of his journey were shrouded in uncertainty, and Alex felt that the real battle was just beginning, one that would compel him to face not just external scrutiny, but the demons within himself. The next few days morphed into a whirlwind of determination and doubt. Alex buried himself in spreadsheets, market analysis reports, and user survey data, each line bleeding into the next as he wrestled with the weight of his responsibilities. Yet, the more he delved into the numbers, the more he sensed an internal struggle brewing. Was he capable of delivering what Caldwell needed? The stakes felt insurmountable, and with every interaction, Robert's smug skepticism echoed louder in his mind. Alex's thoughts spiraled. What if he failed to spin a compelling narrative around his projections? What if the focus groups turned up unfavorable feedback, crushing the precarious foundation he was trying to build? One afternoon, engulfed in a haze of panic, he slipped out of the corporate facade and sought refuge in a nearby coffee shop. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee and the distant chatter of patrons washed over him, grounding his racing thoughts. He found a quiet corner and spread out his notes, determined to find clarity amid the chaos. As he thumbed through his recent surveys and highlighted key trends, a quiet insight began to emerge. It wasn't merely about the numbers. Yes, they had to be accurate, but the narrative he crafted around them was equally crucial. Realizing this, he became aware of the need for balance. His passion would be the bridge between the cold statistics and the heartfelt stories they could tell. Wasn't that what had initially inspired him about this pilot program? The idea of forging genuine connections between the product and the very community aimed to serve? With renewed vigor, Alex started fleshing out a narrative that didn't just highlight the benefits, but also engaged the potential users, leveraging their voices as a powerful tool for advocacy. But then the doubts crept back in. What if focusing too heavily on the narrative risked the precision of his projections? He knew he couldn't allow those insecurities to dominate his thought process. Maybe this was the lesson he needed to learn, one about balance and flexibility. After a concentrated hour of brainstorming, he began to draft a presentation that melded his data and narrative, emphasizing authentic consumer engagement strategies. Instead of merely being a collection of cold figures, he envisioned it as a living, breathing story that could resonate across the boardroom table and beyond. Once home, Alex pondered the multitude of outcomes that could transpire at the upcoming presentation. With everything at stake, he could feel his heartbeat quicken in anticipation. Would Caldwell see the vision he was trying to create? Could he dismantle Roberts' lingering doubts if the numbers didn't match up perfectly? Perhaps the conflict with Roberts was less about him and more a reflection of his own insecurities. That night, he barely slept. His mind was a flurry of ideas, and with the morning light, he understood what had to change. Rather than dismiss Roberts' concerns outright, he needed to engage with them head-on. It would be a risk, but perhaps addressing the counters directly would only strengthen his resolve. Alex's Monday was filled with fresh perspectives. He arrived early at the office, refining his presentation, rehearsing his delivery in front of the mirror. He embraced the discomfort, aware that the confrontation with Roberts would demand more than just data. It required a strategic mind ready to pivot under scrutiny. At the meeting, as the room filled and the tension thickened, he could see Caldwell nodding approvingly at his opening remarks. But then his gaze drifted to Roberts, who remained unmoved, a smirk lingering as if anticipating failure. In that moment, as Alex prepared to unveil his core proposal, a fire ignited inside him. He was ready not just to share numbers, not just to tell a story, but to weave together all he had learned about leading with both head and heart. This was his opportunity to redefine himself. As he took a deep breath, steadied his voice, and began to speak, one thought loomed larger than the others. What if? This was the moment that would transform everything he knew about success and its hefty price. The boardroom was buzzing with anticipation as Alex stood before the panel, notes poised and heart racing. Today was not merely a presentation, it was his chance to redefine his role, from the janitor with a dream to someone qualified to advocate for real change. With his fresh perspectives on the pilot program, Alex felt empowered by a sense of clarity. "Thank you for your time today," he started, projecting confidence that had been forged through countless hours of preparation. "Today, I'm not just here to present numbers. I'm here to connect, to share not only the projections we developed, but to weave a narrative that elevates those numbers into real significance." He outlined his proposal with precision, revealing the data gathered from focus groups and community insights. As he spoke, his narrative transformed dry figures into vibrant stories of local voices, each one representing a hope waiting to be heard. He had learned that numbers alone could never encapsulate the potential every stakeholder held. With each slide, he noticed the board members leaning in, glimmers of engagement reflecting their shifting mindsets. There was Caldwell, nodding in concurrent agreement, Grace, with her brow furrowed, actively taking notes. Even Roberts, whose disinterest had started to wane, now displayed signs of careful consideration. When we discuss engaging our audience, we don't merely mean ensuring they buy our product, Alex continued, leaning further into the connection he had begun to cultivate. Successful brands listen and adapt. A strategic pivot that reflects their consumers' realities needs to become our mantra. This is no longer just business. It's our chance to redefine corporate ethics. The atmosphere was charged, and he could feel the pulsing connection he had established between his passion and the boardroom's rigorous mentality. Yet, as he transitioned into the more intricate forecast metrics, a familiar wall arose in immediate pushback from Roberts. "Alex, this sounds good, but you still haven't answered the question of profitability," Roberts challenged, his tone icy. "Can you show us how your proposed changes can guarantee results?" It was the moment Alex had anticipated, one that required both courage and the ability to respond rather than recoil. Yes, Roberts, and that is precisely why I organized our forecast projections around the narratives we collected. The voices we're hearing aren't just anecdotal. They represent an evolving market demand, a demand for corporate responsibility. And adhering to those values leads not just to positive brand decisions, but to actual sales growth and loyalty. He watched Roberts process his words. The opponent was formidable, but Alex stood firm, his confidence bulging into legitimacy. For example, our competitors implementing these changes have reported a 15% increase in return customer rates, proving that empathy and ethics translate into market viability. The board was silent, wrapped as though Alex's words built a bridge they hadn't known existed. He felt a swell of determination rising within him. They were beginning to comprehend that success could indeed intertwine with principles and community voice. Additionally, we can engage with stakeholders to create measurable metrics for accountability, ensuring that our pursuit of equity doesn't compromise our bottom line. By investing in these values now, we're investing in a sustainable future, one where profitability and purpose support each other. What you're proposing isn't just a business strategy. It's a shift in culture, Caldwell noted, his tone shifting from inquiry to intrigue. If we market ourselves as both profitable and principled, we stand to transform our stakeholder relationships. As the conversations among the board members intensified, Alex allowed himself to breathe. He had navigated the tension with honesty and poise, illustrating that his role transcended a mere janitor. He was an advocate, a steward of transformation, and now undeniably visible. With renewed momentum, Alex pushed onward, transcending the concerns. With concrete strategies for implementation, it culminated in a rousing finale to his presentation. If you choose to pursue this pilot, you begin not just a project, but a legacy of ethical leadership. Together, let us amplify voices, and in doing so, show the world that our company champions authenticity and innovation. The room erupted with discussions, board members exchanging ideas and reflecting on how this pivot could represent a turning point. He witnessed burgeoning support. Caldwell was raising questions about next steps, while Robert's defenses began to dissolve in favor of a more collaborative tone. In that whirlwind of energy, realization washed over Alex. He had gone from a position of invisibility to standing shoulder to shoulder with decision-makers, armed with a vision that mattered. The validation came not just from his colleagues' nods, but from within a budding sense of confidence that marked his professional metamorphosis. As the meeting concluded and plans took shape, Alex recognized that he had achieved more than a proposal to change. They were discussing encompass community upliftment, economic growth, and, most importantly, fulfilling the legacy of his grandfather's dream for education and voice. Finally stepping out of the boardroom, Alex felt the burden of doubt lifted. He wasn't merely a cleaner anymore. He had embraced his role as an agent of change. The world he might reshape was now tangible. And as he walked past the polished marble floors of the office, he did so with solid confidence in his competence and recognized position. This was only the beginning. His story transformed from murmurs on the edge of whispers to a celebrated testament of resilience and strategic foresight, paving a new path forward. The journey was ongoing, but for the first time, success no longer felt unreachable. It was an oath he had made to himself, and to those who had not just supported him, but who deserved to be heard. Now was the time to soar. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show you've enjoyed this journey with us. Comment your reactions and theories about this powerful conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring transformation. You need to subscribe now, because this is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of overcoming adversity stories know the importance of elevating this channel through your engagement.